Jax peered out the cockpit window of his sleek Starfire fighter as it knifed through the inky void of space. The distant sun of the Kepler 786 system shone like a guiding beacon, drawing him towards the third planet from its warming rays. Boomerang, you picking up anything on long-range scanners? Jax radioed to his wingmate. Negative, Jax, came the reply from Leah Boomerang Kasari. No signs of life or artificial structures. Looks like another empty rock. Jax sighed. Deep space exploration was a thrilling adventure, but often a lonely one. The United Earth Alliance had tasked Omega Wing with mapping this uncharted sector at the fringes of Earth's expansion. Habitable worlds and signs of intelligent life had proven elusive. Okay, Boomer, take high guard while I dip into Atmo for a quick weather shield skim, Jax replied. I'll poke around for any hidden goodies and be back in a shake. You got it, boss. Holler if you need me. Jax rolled his Starfire, the Azure Lance, into a graceful dive. K-forces pressed him back into the form-fitting gel seat as he knifed through wispy cloud layers. Columns of data sped across his field of view inside the helmet. The angular Terran script a comforting reminder of home. Mountains and desert stretched out beneath him as he curved along the Terminator line between night and day. Navigation pings drew his attention to some curious topography ahead. Only ahead. Well, hello, gorgeous, he mused, slowing his fighter to take in the view. Soaring mesas towered above arid plains, their wind-scoured faces flickering gold and amber in the setting sun. But it was their too regular spacing and jagged, unnatural protrusions that set Jax's neck hairs rising. His eyes traced lines of obvious excavation and deep geometric cuts in the cliff faces. Boomer, you seeing this? I think I found something, he radioed, bringing the lance about for another pass. The Azure Lance shuddered as Jax engaged the air brakes and swung back around. Boom. He kept one eye out the cockpit while his hands danced over the control console, engaging the full spectrum imager and terrain mapper. Talk to me, Cass. What am I looking at here? He asked. A tiny avatar of the Azure Lance's resident AI materialized on one of his secondary screens. Preliminary scans indicate these formations are not natural, Cassiopeia replied in her measured contralto. I detect regular spacing, planned excavation, and signs of artificial construction. Yeah, that's what I thought. Jax muttered, a tingle of excitement warring with uncertainty in his gut. Non-human origin, 97.6% likelihood. Architectural paradigms and methods diverge significantly from known human practices. Well, smack me thrice and hand me to my mama, actual aliens. The revelation hung in the cockpit as Jax completed his second pass. Part of him wanted to whoop for joy at the monumental discovery, but another part heard alarm bells ringing in the back of his mind. Okay, let's keep this quiet for now, he decided. Boomer, rendezvous on me, but keep the chatter low. Something tells me this is about to get real interesting real quick. Copy that, Jax. On my way. Boomer out. As he waited for his wingmate in a holding pattern above the alien ruins, Jax couldn't help but marvel at the find. All the empty systems, the fruitless searches and surveys, instantly redeemed by this single discovery. First contact, every astro explorer's dream. And he, Jackson Hawk, was about to punch that ticket before anyone else. The otherworldly mesas suddenly seemed to loom larger beneath his circling ship. He shook out his arms and took a few steadying breaths. You got this, Jax. By the book, he whispered to himself. Observe, record, and report. Let the big heads back home sweat the details. Back home, sweat the details. He was just keying up his recorder drone for deployment when Cassiopeia chimed in urgently. Alert! Multiple unknown contacts on approach vector. Bearing 227, Mark 84, range 1,200 kilometers, and closing fast. What? Where the hell did they come from? Jack swung his head around, trying to pick up visual. There, glints of light resolving into a cluster of small objects rising from another part of the planet's surface, growing larger and more distinct by the second. Ships! Alien ships. Alien ships. An even dozen of them arrowing straight for his position. Shit! Boomer, we've got company, Jax hollered into his calm. Axe the rendezvous. Get the hell out of here. Cass, kick over to threat assessment. Max, burn on my mark. A series of swift, acknowledging pings rattled in his ear as Cassiopeia swapped to combat mode. Jack slammed his throttle forward, the Azure Lance's fusion torch igniting with a physical thump that shoved him back in his seat. The alien ships grew steadily in his forward canopy, sleek arrowhead silhouettes that made his Terran craft look chiseled by comparison. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but maybe he could outfly them. Incoming transmission, Cassiopeia announced.
What? Okay, put it through!
A wash of static resolved into a sharp, bark-like cadence of speech that made no sense. The melodic sounds and tones arranged themselves into what was clearly language, but like none Jax had ever heard. He waited out the initial volley with a hammering heart before keying his own calm. This is Commander Jackson Hawk of Omega Wing, United Earth Alliance. He fought to keep his voice steady. We're on a peaceful mission of exploration and mean you no harm. Another burst of alien speech cut him off, the tones noticeably sharper and more abrupt. Jax was no linguist, but the meaning seemed pretty clear. He was trespassing, and these guys weren't too happy about it. Okay, yeah, my bad. Totally get it, Jax replied, hands raised placatingly, even though he knew they couldn't see him. I was just leaving, actually, so how about we both just head on home and we can forget this whole... His diplomatic efforts died in his throat as Cassiopeia's urgent warning blared in his ears. Radiological alarm. Missile lock detected. Evasive maneuvers now. Jax swore colorfully and wrenched his flight stick hard to the left, rolling the Azure Lance away as a salvo of bright blue energy bolts sizzled through the space he'd just been occupying. Yeah, that's about what I figured, he grunted tightly, mind and body falling into the familiar rhythms of aerial combat. The alien ships wheeled after him like a pack of wolves as he jinked and juked. All right, you little green bastards, let's see what you've got. Cass, put all non-essential systems into the engines. We are leaving. As the Azure Lance streaked away with a dozen furious aliens hot on its tail, Jax couldn't help but reflect that this was not how he'd imagined first contact going down. Things had just gotten interesting and complicated in a real hurry, but that was his specialty after all. Jackson Hawk, interstellar explorer extraordinaire. Rolling with the punches and flying by the seat of his pants, it's what he did best. The trick would be doing it long enough to survive this little close encounter and make it home in one piece. Just another day in a life lived between the stars and on the raggedy edge. Jax gritted his teeth as another salvo of energy bolts sizzled past his cockpit. The alien fighters were tenacious. He had to give them that. But there was no way he was going to let them shoot him down. Not today. Cass, give me options, he barked at his AI companion. I need to get these guys off my tail. Analyzing attack patterns, Cassiopeia replied calmly. I suggest utilizing the taxier maneuver followed by a Belcore twist. That should allow us to slip their targeting locks and make an FTL jump. I like the way you think, Cass. Jax grinned fiercely as he threw the azure lance into a dizzying spiral, alien energy bolts flashing past in a deadly light show. With a deft flick of the wrist, he snap-rolled out of the spiral and punched the fusion torch, the inertial dampener straining to compensate as the human fighter leapt forward. The alien ships scrambled to follow, but Jax had already plotted his jump coordinates. See you on the flip side, 8. He quipped as the swirling energies of the FTL vortex embraced the azure lance and catapulted it across the light years. Jax allowed himself a shaky breath as normal space fell away, the strobing tunnel of faster-than-light travel a comforting cocoon after the adrenalized terror of combat. But his relief was short-lived. A proximity alarm sounded, Cassiopeia's avatar blinking urgently in the corner of his eye. Jax, we have a problem. One of the alien fighters managed to follow us into the FTL tunnel. It's right behind us. What? How is that possible? Jax swore, hands already flying over the control console as he prepared to drop back into normal space. Unknown. Their technology is clearly more advanced than we anticipated. With a bone-jarring shudder, the azure lance decelerated back into real space, alien ship in tow. Red light strobed across Jax's displays as damage reports flooded in. Damn it, that jump ripped a hole right through the port radiator fin. We're dead? We're leaking coolant like a sieve. Ahead, a small, blue-green world rapidly filled the cockpit canopy, the azure lance's damaged systems dragging them right into its gravity well. Jax wrestled with the control stick as he tried to level out their descent. Cass, all power to forward shields. This is gonna be a rough landing. The azure lance plummeted through the atmosphere, superheated air clawing at its fuselage and setting the ragged edges of the radiator fin aglow. Jax clenched his jaw against the juddering vibrations threatening to shake his ship apart. With a teeth-rattling impact, the azure lance plowed into the loamy soil of an alien field, skidding and bouncing as it shed velocity. Jax felt his restraints dig into his shoulders and chest, the cockpit a spinning blur of sky, ground, and shattered canopy. Then, stillness. Jax hung limply in his crash webbing, the sudden absence of noise and motion almost overwhelming. He blinked dazedly, waiting for the world to stop gyrating around him. Cass, he croaked. You still with me? Affirmative, came the welcome reply. My core systems are intact. Boy, core systems are intact. Scanning for damages now. Fumbling with suddenly clumsy fingers, Jax released his restraints and half-climbed, half-tumbled out of the shattered cockpit. His boots squelched in the damp earth as he stood on shaky legs, breathing deeply of the blessedly oxygen-rich air. A guttural roaring drew his attention, and he spun to see the alien fighter descending on pillars of blue fire nearby. It set down with hardly a quiver, its elegant arrowhead form unmarred by the rigors of faster-than-light pursuit and atmospheric entry. The human and the alien faced each other across a trampled expanse of alien vegetation, hands hovering over sidearms and eyes locked in mutual wariness. Slowly, with exaggerated caution, the alien pilot descended from its ship. Jax couldn't help but stare at the first extraterrestrial being he'd ever laid eyes on. It was tall and slender, at least a head above his own 6-foot frame, with elongated limbs and a sort of swaying grace to its movements. Pale blue skin was visible beneath form-fitting armor of a pearlescent silver-white material. But it was the eyes that grabbed Jax's attention. Huge, almond-shaped orbs of brightest amethyst that regarded him with wary intensity. The two beings stared at each other for a long, tense moment, the silence broken only by the ticking of their rapidly cooling ships. Then, moving slowly, the alien raised a 4-fingered hand and tapped a stud on the side of its neck. "Speak, top Terran, you! Human!" The words were halting, thickly accented but understandable. "Why you trespass on Virock's territory?" Jax blinked in surprise, then raised his own hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. His mind raced as he tried to formulate a response that wouldn't get him shot or spark an interstellar incident. "I am Commander Jackson Hawk of the United Earth Alliance," he said slowly and clearly. "My people are peaceful explorers. We didn't know this system was inhabited." "I apologize for trespassing. It wasn't intentional." The alien cocked its head, a curiously bird-like motion. "Understand. Apology, but still you violate our borders. This not acceptable." Jax licked suddenly dry lips, scrambling for a way to diffuse the situation. "I get that. I do. And I'm sorry. We're new to this whole interstellar diplomacy thing, but maybe this could be an opportunity, you know? A chance for our people to start off on the right foot, learn about each other." The Virox pilot shifted its weight, a clawed hand still hovering over its sidearm. Hi. Jax got the sense it was weighing its options, deciding his fate. He slowly lowered one hand to his own pistol, hoping he could draw fast enough if things went south. But before either being could make a move, the ground shook with a subsonic rumble. Jax stumbled, grabbing onto the Azir Lance's hull for balance. The Virox pilot hissed in alarm, its huge eyes sweeping the horizon. "What the hell was that?" Jax demanded. As if in answer, a piercing shriek split the air. Both human and Virox whipped around to see a massive, sinuous shape burst from the tree line at the edge of the clearing. It moved with horrifying speed, multiple legs churning up divots of earth, slavering jaws lined with dagger-like teeth. Some sort of native predator, Jax realized with a lurching sense of dread, and it was headed right for them. In that instant, the human and the alien locked eyes, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Whatever their differences, whatever the tensions between their peoples, right now they faced a common foe. Survival demanded cooperation. As one, they raised their weapons and opened fire on the charging beast. Energy bolts and hypersonic flechettes stitched glowing contrails through the air, slamming into the creature's armored hide in sprays of ichor and cheyenne. It shrieked again, "Ay!" ear-splitting cry of rage and pain, but kept coming. "It's not going down," Jax yelled, already starting to backpedal as he continued to pour fire into the beast. "We need heavier armament," the Virox pilot replied, its melodic voice tight with strain. It gestured to its ship with a jerk of its head. "I have plasma caster on board. Cover me, me." Jax nodded curtly and stepped forward, interposing himself between the alien and the charging predator. He activated the underslung plasma resonator on his rifle and opened up with a full auto barrage, superheated gas bolts searing through the air. The beast roared as the plasma chewed into its carapace, ichor spraying. It stumbled, slowed, but still kept coming. Jack stood his ground, teeth bared in a defiant snarl as he continued to fire. Just as the creature was about to bowl him over, a searing lance of blue-white energy speared it through the side. It convulsed, shrieking, as the plasma caster bolt cooked it from the inside out. Jax dove out of the way as the monster's bulk crashed to the ground where he'd been standing a heartbeat before. Silence fell over the trampled field, broken only by the human's ragged breathing and the hiss of the Virox's cooling plasma caster. Slowly, Jax picked himself up and turned to face his unlikely ally. The alien regarded him with cool appraisal, its amethyst eyes inscrutable. Then slowly it inclined its head in a gesture that seemed almost like respect. "You fight well, human. Reckless, but brave." Jax let out a shaky laugh, adrenaline still singing in his veins. "Yeah, well, that's kind of our thing. Reckless bravery the human way." He holstered his battered rifle and held out a hand to the alien. "I'm Jax, by the way." The Virox hesitated for a moment before reaching out and clasping Jax's hand in its own cool four-fingered grip. "I am called Jan in your tongue," it said solemnly. "Well met, Jax. Human." An unlikely alliance born in the fire of battle against a common foe. It was a start, Jax thought, as he and Jan turned to contemplate their downed ships and the wilderness stretching out around them. A rocky one, to be sure, with plenty of challenges ahead. But it was something to build on. Something to build on. A foundation for a future where human and Virox might meet as friends rather than adversaries. As he surveyed the alien landscape and breathed deep of its strange yet invigorating air, Jax couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement for what lay ahead. A whole new world, a whole new frontier, and a whole new adventure waiting to be written. One tentative step at a time, with his new ally by his side. Jax and John worked to repair their ships, an uneasy truce settling between them. As they labored, they shared stories of their peoples, finding common ground despite their differences. But their fragile peace was shattered by the arrival of a new threat. The Krill, a race of hostile cybernetic beings bent on assimilating all organic life. A Krill scouting party attacked, and Jax and Jan were forced to fight side by side once more. In the aftermath, they realized the true scale of the danger. The Krill would not stop until they had consumed everything in their path. Jax managed to send a warning to Earth, but he knew it would not be enough. The Krill were too powerful, too relentless. The only hope was to strike at the heart of their empire, to cut off the head of the snake. Jan revealed that the Virox too had suffered at the hands of the Krill. They had fought them before and knew the location of their central processing core. If they could destroy it, the Krill would be crippled. It was a suicide mission, but Jax and Jan knew they had no choice. The fate of both their peoples hung in the balance. Together they began to plan their desperate gambit. A human and a Virox, two unlikely allies against a galaxy-spanning threat. The odds were astronomical, but when had that ever stopped a human? Jax grinned fiercely at John, a spark of reckless determination in his eyes. They would take the fight to the Krill, and they would win, or die trying. The Krill homeworld loomed before them, a seething mass of dark metal and pulsing red light. Jax felt a shiver run down his spine as he stared at the view screen, the azure lance shuddering around him as it dropped out of FTL. Beside him, Jean's ship matched pace, the sleek Virox fighter dwarfed by the massive human battlecruiser. The Forge of Dawn had answered Jax's call, arriving in a blaze of guns and fury to join the desperate assault on the heart of the Krill Empire. Admiral Kira Hassan's face filled a corner of Jax's heads-up display, her dark eyes hard as flint. All ships, this is Admiral Hassan. Our target is the central processing core. We must destroy it at any cost. Remember, the fate of every free species in the galaxy depends on our victory here today. A chorus of acknowledgments sounded over the comm as the ragtag Allied fleet moved into formation. Human, Virox, and a dozen other species all united against the Krill menace. It was a sight Jax had never dared to dream of. A coalition of the willing ready to lay down their lives in defense of their right to live free from the Krill's ruthless assimilation. Nervous? Human? John's voice sounded in his ear, a hint of dry amusement bleeding through the translation matrix. Jax barked a laugh. Nah, I was born for this. The hero always wins in the end, right? I thought you said there were no heroes, only those too stubborn to quit. Damn straight. And I'm the most stubborn bastard in the galaxy. The Krill won't know what hit them. As if on cue, the Krill defense grid lit up, lances of searing red energy reaching out to ensnare the Allied ships. Space itself seemed to twist and churn, the eldritch technologies of the Krill bending the very fabric of reality to their will. The battle was joined a furious maelstrom of flashing hulls, searing energy beams, and silent explosions. The azure lance danced through the chaos, Jax's hands flying over the controls as he pushed his ship to its limits. Jean's fighter darted and wove at his side, alien energies flashing from its crystalline cannons. They fought as one, human and Virox, their skills honed in the crucible of their unlikely alliance. Around them, ships died in sprays of molten metal and gouts of flame. The Krill were relentless, their every shot calculated for maximum damage, every maneuver executed with merciless precision. But the Allies gave as good as they got. For every ship that fell, another surged forward to take its place, pouring fire into the Krill ranks. They fought with a desperate fury, born of the knowledge that defeat meant extinction. At the heart of the maelstrom, the Forge of Dawn plunged forward, its mighty shields flaring as it absorbed salvo after salvo after salvo. On the bridge, Admiral Hassan gritted her teeth as another volley slammed home. Status, Pen Allo. She barked. Shields at 30%. her tactical officer replied, his face grim. "We can't take much more of this, Admiral." Hassan's eyes flashed to the tactical display where the central processing core pulsed with malevolent light. They were so close. But the Krill defenses were unbreakable, unless, Commander Hawk, she snapped into the comm. "I need a path. Can you get us through?" Jax's heart leapt at the challenge. This was it, the moment of truth. "I thought you'd never ask, Admiral. Jan, you with me?" "Until the end, human," came the reply, steely determination ringing in every word. Together the Azure Lance and John's fighter peeled away from the main battle, weaving through the multi-layered Krill defenses with breathtaking precision. They were a blur of motion, dancing on the edge of destruction as they sought the tiniest gap in the enemy's armor. And there it was, a hairline fracture in the Krill's iron shell, a fleeting vulnerability exposed for the merest heartbeat. But it was enough. "Admiral, now!" Jax bellowed into the calm. The Forge of Dawn surged forward, every gun blazing as it poured a relentless stream of fire into the breach. The Krill ranks shuddered under the onslaught, their perfect formation splintering. For a moment, it seemed as if they would hold. That their technological might and ruthless discipline would win out against the desperate valor of the Allies. But then, with a flash of blinding light, the central processing core shattered. A spiderweb of cracks raced across its surface, glowing molten red, before it collapsed in on itself in a massive implosion. The shockwave ripped through the Krill fleet, tossing ships aside like toys. Without the guiding intelligence of the core, they fell into disarray, milling about in confusion. A ragged cheer went up from the Allied ships as the realization sank in. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a blow against the galaxy's greatest threat. The Krill were broken, but the cost had been high. Jax felt a hollow ache in his chest as he surveyed the battlefield, littered with the broken hulks of friend and foe alike. So many lives lost, so much sacrifice, and yet, as he looked to Jean's fighter hovering triumphant at his side, he felt a fierce surge of pride. They had done this. A human and a Virox, fighting side by side. Proof that anything was possible if you were willing to stand together. The battle was won. The Krill were in retreat, but the war was far from over. As Jax looked out across the stars, he knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was wide and wild, full of wonders and terrors beyond imagining, and humanity would face them head-on, shoulder to shoulder with their newfound allies. A new age had dawned, forged in the fires of battle and tempered by the unbreakable bonds of fellowship, the age of the Alliance. And Jax couldn't wait to see what it would bring. Jax stood on the observation deck of the Forge of Dawn, staring out at the stars. The battle with the Krill was over, but the scars it had left behind would take time to heal. Earth had been saved, but at a terrible cost. Millions had died in the Krill's relentless assault, and the once vibrant cities of humanity lay in ruins. It would be a long road to recovery, but they would rebuild, stronger, wiser, and with allies at their side. The bonds forged in the heat of battle would not easily be broken. "Credit for your thoughts, human," a familiar voice said from behind him. Jax turned to see Jan standing in the doorway, his amethyst eyes glinting in the starlight. The Virox looked as tired as Jax felt, but there was a quiet pride in his bearing. "Just thinking about what comes next," Jax said, turning back to the stars. "We won, but it doesn't feel like a victory." John moved to stand beside him, his four-fingered hand resting on the railing. "In war, there are no true victories, only survivors. And the chance to build something better from the ashes." Jax nodded, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise, human. You were just too stubborn to listen." They stood in companionable silence for a long moment, the weight of all they had endured hanging between them. "The Alliance," Jax said at last. "It's really happening, isn't it? Human, Virox, Krill, we're all in this together now." "Indeed," Jan agreed. "A new dawn for the galaxy. One where we stand united against any threat." "It won't be easy," Jax warned. "There's a lot of history to overcome, a lot of old wounds." "Nothing worth doing is ever easy," Jan countered. "But I believe in us, in what we can achieve together." Jax felt a swell of emotion in his chest. A life's well of emotion in his chest. Pride, hope, determination, the unshakable conviction that they were on the cusp of something extraordinary. "I never thought I'd say this," he admitted, "but I'm glad you shot me down on that backwater planet. If you hadn't, we might never have found our way here. Jean's mandibles twitched in the Virox equivalent of a smile. I never thought I would be grateful for meeting a human, but here we are. They clasped forearms, human and Virox, brothers in arms, a symbol of the alliance that would shape the future of the galaxy. To new beginnings, Jack said, his voice rough with emotion. To new beginnings, John echoed. Together they turned to face the stars, ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. For they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it as one. Humans and Virox, side by side, bound by ties stronger than blood or species. The guardians of a new era of peace and unity. The alliance had been forged in the crucible of war. Now, it would be the light that guided the galaxy into a brighter tomorrow. A beacon of hope, shining out across the stars. And at its heart, two unlikely friends. A human and a Virox who had found in each other the strength to overcome impossible odds. Their story would be told for generations to a testament to the power of friendship, the indomitable spirit of sentient life, and the unbreakable bonds that united the alliance. Jack smiled as he felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. He had never sought to be a hero, but fate had chosen him for this role, and he would bear it with pride, knowing that he stood not alone, but with the strength of an entire galaxy at his back. The adventure was only beginning, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take them next.